Hi and welcome to my newest video where we are going to talk about my lessons learned from DevOps Transformations. Once upon a time, there was a person called John Doe. He had a very impressive LinkedIn profile and he wanted to do a DevOps transformation in his organization. He said, doing DevOps is simple. You just need to have an existing environment. Then you need the Spotify model because you need the right organizational model to do DevOps, and you add it to this environment. Then, of course, you need the scaled agile framework because bigger is always better. Therefore, we are going to add that also to the environment. And then you need to have team topologies because when you are going to scale, you need to optimize the team interactions and also the flow in this organization. And you add that. And of course, you need DevOps or DevSecops or BizDevOps or FinOps or whatever ops, our own DevOps. And we add that also to this environment. And because we are doing DevOps, we of course also need platform engineering because without platform engineering, we cannot do DevOps at all. So off it goes. Also, that needs to be added to the environment. Then, of course, we need to steer very well the whole thing. And you know, without tools, it doesn't work. So we need to add as many tools as possible so that we can solve all of the problems with these tools. And we add that also. And again, we need to steer very well. And then the following thing happens. It crashes and we are there and we say DevOps is bullshit. And now what? Wait a moment. Just a question. What do we want to achieve with all of that? Let's have a look. When we look at what companies nowadays want to achieve, it is quite clear that they need to increase the efficiency by having more value for the money. They also want to go with their ideas faster to the market. So a faster time to market is very important for them. Also increasing the quality of their product and having a higher customer satisfaction is also very beneficial for them. And today we have a war on talents. So all of these companies want to have top qualified employees. Of course, there are also some other things that companies want, but these, in my opinion or in my environment, are the top 5 things that companies want to achieve with a DevOps transformation. So now we know what companies want to achieve with a DevOps transformation. But what are the challenges that these companies have? The challenges that I usually see in many companies is legacy system or legacy landscape and also legacy processes. So it's really all about getting sort of the basics right. What you also can see is a challenge is budget constraints. That's why they want to increase the efficiency. Talent management is also a big challenge because of the war of talents. That's why they want to have top qualified employees, and then the culture. And also the whole change management. This is quite a huge challenge that I am facing. And then there is this alignment between the IT and the business, getting rid of the walls of confusion, organizing across the value stream is a very important point. But of course, there are also more challenges that companies face nowadays. So now we know what companies want to achieve, and we also know what kind of challenges they have. I will now show you my lessons learned and also the anti-patterns which I have seen during DevOps transformations. The first lesson learned is the sense of urgency. You need to have that sense of urgency. If you don't have that, you will probably only do a small DevOps transformation. So in that case, where you don't have a sense of urgency, this is usually when the C-level does not have that sense of urgency. And the impact of that is that you will have a lot of meetings with many PowerPoints, but no decisions will be taken and topics get overly discussed. The root cause of this problem is that missing sense of urgency. And here we need to distinguish between two things. And as I said, we are now on the C level. So on the C level, you don't have that sense of urgency. And sense of urgency can be two things. First of all, it can be a burning platform, so that the C level sees that they are standing on a burning platform and they need to change now. That's why you do a transformation. And the second thing is, okay, they are not standing yet on a burning platform, but they see in the future that something is coming, that a challenger is coming, or that something happens where they could have a burning platform, and they have then the sense of urgency so that they can change. So my lessons learned is when management wants to do a DevOps transformation, I usually ask, why do you want to do that? And I ask at least five times why, because I really want to go to the root cause why they want to do this change. You also see that I use quite often Dr. John P. Cotter's The 8 Steps of Leading Change, where the first step is creating that sense of urgency. And if you are not able to create that sense of urgency on the C level, then you can stop there, because the only thing you will do is do a small transformation, because you don't have a mandate to change big things. So the transformation itself will be quite small. But if you have that sense of urgency, I always recommend to follow Cotter, because it's very good when it comes to change. So the second step will be build a guiding coalition. The third step will be form a strategic vision and initiatives. Then the fourth step is enlist a volunteer army. The fifth step is enabling action by removing barriers. Sixth step is generating short-term wins. Seventh step is sustain acceleration, and eighth step, institutionalize change. So always remember to ask, why do you want to do a DevOps transformation? The next lesson learned is about leadership commitment. So before we were on the top management, now we go one level down to the middle management. So in that case, the C-level has the sense of urgency and wants to have the change. But the middle management likes it how it is right now. They want to have the status quo. They don't want to change. So in that case, you will get a lot of misalignment. You also will encounter some resource constraints because the resources will not be given. You will also have a very slow progress and a lot of resistance, especially from the management. The root cause of that is that you have people that fear this change. They fear losing control about what they are having. They also fear that their impact or their influence will be shorter, and all of that is because they are very short focused on short-term wins, and it can also be that they have a complete lack of understanding of what we want to achieve with a DevOps transformation. One of the things that we very often do is peer learning, especially on the middle management layer or also on the C level. You can do that where you are doing peer learning, where you connect these managers or C-level people with other peers from other companies that already have done a DevOps transformation, so that they can exchange also about the why and the how, and also how the impact is. This is one of the best recommendations that I can give you. The second recommendation is quite obvious. It's about education and training. You need to educate these people and also train these people because they need to lead the change, which is something we will see later. The third point is quite clear, but sometimes it's not so clear because you don't set very clear expectation. Also from the C-level, there need to be very clear expectation to the middle management, what you want them to do and what the goals are of such an agile transformation, and also what the KPIs are, how they are being measured, because potentially you now need to change the KPIs they have so that they are doing this transformation. The fourth point is about the alignment of the business goals. So there it is always important. Usually what you have is that such a DevOps transformation is done in the IT, but you need to extend it also to the business, or you will have massive resistance from there. So you need to combine that and align the goals of IT and business. And the fifth point is also important and also very obvious. Engage external experts because they have done that, been there, done that, and they can show you how to do that. The third lessons learned is one size fits all. What I usually hear is, yeah, we have implemented the Spotify model, or we have implemented SAFe, or any of these frameworks. Or I hear, yeah, at Google they are doing that, and this is also something we need to do right here. Please always remember, your context is different. And when you are going to use that approach of one size fits all, and you are going to implement without thinking just a framework by the book, then this will lead to a lot of confusion, also resistance. And in the end, what I usually see, there is just a relabeling of what you already have. For example, when you are going to implement SAFe just by the book and you don't implement the continuous improvement, you will just relabel the project manager to an RT or a Scrum Master or whatever, and your release cycles, or your 3 months release cycle will then just be a PI. And everybody will say, hey, everything is now slow, everything has an overhead, and so on. And you don't get the real benefit of doing Agile or DevOps. Again, here, the root cause is just doing it by the book, not doing continuous improvement. And also, you see clearly, it's a lack of understanding how to implement such a transformation. The solution for that is quite clear. Your context is different. That's why you need to define your values. You don't take the values of one of these frameworks. You define your values. Then you define your principles, which guides you in how the decisions are made and what kind of principles you want to apply for this transformation. And then, very important, you define outcomes, not output. Output is, for example, when you say, okay, I want to have a document that defines this transformation. This is output. What you want is outcome. For example, sort of a behavioral change that you want to see at your employees. So you need to define these outcomes and then also start to measure these outcomes you want to achieve. And the fourth one is sort of quite an obvious one, but I see many companies are struggling with that. You need to define a purpose, and here it is important to define it also with the mindset that of your employees, because your employees ask, what's in it for me? And here you need to come with the purpose of your company, why this company exists, so that your employees are buying into that purpose. And then, obviously, you need to do inspect and adapt. Continuously improve this whole process, always change what does not work or fix what is currently broken. Another anti-pattern that I see quite often is form a DevOps team. This is usually something that happens on the lower management level, where management says, we want to do a little bit of DevOps. So what they do is they create a DevOps team, which is just another silo between Dev and Ops. This only separates Dev and Ops more, and you just have other walls of confusion that you have added to your value stream. Again, here the root cause is that resistance to change. You don't want to change what you already have. You only want a little bit of change. What can also be is that you have some security concerns about that, or compliance concerns that are around that. And you also can clearly see that you are missing sort of that vision and the goal that we previously have discussed. Therefore, the solution is simple. You need to have a clear goal, what you want to achieve. You see, it is very important that you know what kind of outcomes you want to have, what you want to achieve with such a DevOps transformation. Also, what helps here quite a lot is that product mindset. Because what you want to have is not adding silos after silo. You want to organize yourself across the value stream, bringing all the people together working on a product. And therefore, you want to organize the people across that value stream and also apply budgeting according to the value stream. The next anti-pattern is quite an interesting one, and I'm pretty sure you also encounter that quite a lot. It is busyness. What you see when you have busyness is that everyone is very, very busy. The impact is you nearly cannot find time with the people to discuss things. The calendars are completely full. Everything is only done to 60%. There is no excellence. It's a very bad experience. And in the end, what you also have in such an environment is a lot of burnouts. The root cause of that is the so-called multiloading. We have the overloading of people. When you have a task and the task is too big, then this is overloading. But what we encounter in many companies nowadays is multiloading, which means they have different roles, different tasks, different products or projects where they are working on, and this gives that multiloading, which is quite an evil thing. Also, what you can see is there is a constant change, and what I always encounter in many companies, you have people that are assigned to 10% on different projects. So 10% there, 10% there, 10% there, and 10% there. And in the end, they only can align, but they don't really can add value. And that is a huge problem that I see quite often. So the solution for that is focus. You need to focus, you need to have clear priorities on what you want to achieve. You see here, the clearer the picture is what you want to achieve, what the outcome is, the clearer gets also your focus. One thing that I always recommend is that you only have people on a project or on a product which can work greater than 60% on one project or product. If they if they are not able to do that, then they are not part of the project, or perhaps they are just subject matter experts, but they are not contributing value to that product or project. An interesting thing is if you don't find enough people that can work greater than 60% on that project or product, then you don't do that. Or you need to decide if another project or product needs to be stopped. This is nothing else than limiting the work in process by limiting the capacity. And of course, a quite obvious one, start stopping projects so that you get free capacity. Also, again, having a clear strategy, having clear outcomes, again, is very, very important so that you can focus on the right things. Another anti-pattern that I see quite often is go full DevOps. This is sort of an anti-pattern which is linked to the one size fits all, but it is a different thing in my opinion, because here you are going to say, okay, we want to implement that DevOps thing. You don't have fully understand DevOps, and you're going into the direction where you say all of these product teams now need to do, you build it, you run it, and they need to do everything by themselves. The impact or the result which you get from that is a lot of inconsistency and redundancy of what they are building. Also, you have a bad time to productivity, and again, you can lead also to quite a lot of burnouts. The root cause behind that is the cognitive load on the teams is quite high, because they need to do, or they need to care about quite a lot of things. So really about everything in the software engineering space. And also what you can see is that they are usually also lacking quite a lot of operational experience when it comes to building such products. The solution for that is to introduce platform engineering. You see it down here. You have a platform engineering team which builds a platform where the teams can build on top of that their own products. This ensures that they don't get overloaded and that they can focus on the development of their products. This means that this platform engineering will provide a centralized tooling and also centralized services. They provide standardization and also secured environments, and they provide a lot of self-service, which then can also scale. Please note that this is not a new silo which you're going to introduce, because what you're going to do here is that the platform engineering team creates a platform which can be used by the product teams. They don't need to use it. What you want to have is that the platform engineering team is creating a product which the product teams want to use. This is the way how you are going into this direction, and this is a very beneficial way for the product teams. So in summary, the anti-patterns and the lessons learned. First of all, there is the sense of urgency. You need to have that sense of urgency on the C-level, or you don't get a mandate. Always ask, why should we do this DevOps transformation? Very important is leadership. You need to get the buy-in of the leadership. Leaders need to go first. And here, what helps very much is that peer learning, where you bring the leaders of a company together, especially from companies that already have done the DevOps transformation, so that they can do peer learning. The third anti-pattern which we have discussed is one size fits all. Just applying sort of a framework without thinking about it. And here, don't apply a framework. Use your brain, focus on the outcome. What do you want to achieve? And just use the framework as a toolbox. Take out of the toolbox what fits your need and what solves your problems. The fourth anti-pattern was forming a DevOps team, so creating a new silo in your organization. Don't do that. Form or organize yourself across the value stream. Don't introduce new silos. The fifth one was the busyness. Everybody is nowadays busy, but what you can do is having that rule that people that are contributing or creating value on a project or on a product needs to be greater than 60% on one project or product. And the last one was go full DevOps. Here, this is quite an anti-pattern because it will introduce a lot of redundancy and also stress to the teams. So here you need to establish self-service and a platform with standardization to support the product teams in doing DevOps. So now we have seen all of these anti-patterns and lessons learned, and I think it is very important that we quickly make a step back and think about what do we actually want to achieve with a DevOps transformation. For that, I have brought you a big picture. On the top level of an organization, you have the board, the management, the C-level. They have a vision and a strategy. In that case, in this example here, we have a company which creates drones. You see, they have a small market share with small drones, and their vision is to get a bigger market share, and they want to achieve that by introducing new drones, like a maintenance drone or a drone which can lift heavy weights. Please note, I use here this drone example because it's something you can think about and which you can touch, but you can also think of the drone as your software or a software product. Now, on this level, the management has a portfolio where they have all the big initiatives, all the big ideas in there, and they prioritize these. And in this example, they say, the best thing which serves the best to our vision is to create a drone which can lift heavy weights. What they now do is they give this epic of creating a drone which can lift heavy weights down to the product level. There, the product management takes this at this epic, which says we just want to have a drone which can lift heavy weights, and they're going to design sort of that drone. What is needed to have a drone which can lift heavy weights? And they are creating features which they are doing onto the product backlog. In our case, this would be features like we need to have a big battery, we need to adapt the software, and we need to have new engines. These features go now down onto the team level. There you have already teams which are working right now on the smaller drones. And now these features go down and they are going to change now, for example, the software, and in this example, perhaps also the battery. As you can see, these features are going down. The PO takes these features and they are creating user stories, which they then give to the teams which are working on their continuous delivery pipeline. Now, because of that new drone, we need to create a different motor or a different engine, and for that we of course need a new team. And now the platform engineering level comes into play, which provides a new continuous delivery pipeline, fully standardized to that team, so that they can fast onboard and start working on that new engine. When all the parts have been finished developing, it gets assembled and then will be delivered to the customer. The customer is happy. We have created more value for money. We have a faster time to market, a better quality, and top qualified employees. But the story does not end here, because now we need to gather telemetry data from the drones and from the software and feed this information back to the teams. But not only this information is important, also the customer satisfaction and also the amount of market share or how many drones we are selling. These are essential information which need to go back to the board level, where they are then going to look at these telemetry data and then make decisions whether to go on with that drone, implement new versions of that drone, or even to stop that drone and implement another one. This is a digital factory, and that is what companies want to have. Let's quickly recap that. On the top level, you have the lean portfolio management, which aligns all the strategic initiatives. It prioritizes these initiatives based on the data they receive from the monitoring system. Based on that, they decide on which initiative the whole factory is, or the teams are going to focus, and they give that down on that level. On the foundation of your digital factory, you have the platform team. They develop, build and maintain the platform which provides all of the tools, standardization, everything which is needed for the teams to create their products. And then you have the product team, which create, develop, build, and run and maintain their products. The lean portfolio management aligns the strategy with the execution. The platform team builds the foundation of your digital factory and enables the product teams to do DevOps. When we're talking about this platform team, then the platform team creates this platform, which of course gives to the team all of the tools, but not only that, it also has application, runtime, and compute in there. It has, of course, an awesome developer experience, and it has the whole shift left of the security, which is automated DevSecops directly built in. Of course, you need to have access and identity. You want to be able to onboard someone in the morning. This person has access directly to all of these tools, can, for example, work on the project, and in the afternoon you want to offboard that person, and immediately that person loses the access to all of the resources. Of course, you also want to have centralized security and a great monitoring system with observability, and of course you want to do GitOps, where you have all the CI/CD pipelines and automatically deploy into the different environments. As you can see, with this approach, the product teams can focus on you build it, you run it on their products, and the platform team can focus on delivering this platform as a product to the production teams. And you see that the platform team generates value for the teams, while the product teams generate value for the customers. Creating such a digital factory requires a holistic approach. You need to have a scalable architecture based on APIs where the product teams can work on. Of course, you need to do DevOps, and you need to have this platform engineering or this platform where you can build upon, but you of course also need to have proper software engineering techniques and practices. And then a very important point is to deal with data. You now get a lot of data out of the observability, and you need to use that data not only for the teams but also for the lean portfolio management, where you want to provide this data so that these people can make the right decisions. And you want to put the customer right into the center. You want to have a great customer experience in order to have a great customer satisfaction. You really want to have a look at your end-to-end customer experience. And this brings us, of course, to the agile program delivery, where you are going to have a look at how you are going to organize your teams, how you organize your backlog management, how you organize the dependencies between the teams, and how to align these teams. And the last thing is the product management, where you are going to align the strategy with the execution. Creating a digital factory is very important for many companies for delivering their complex products, and you can see you need to have a holistic approach in order to achieve that. This brings us to the success criteria when it comes to a DevOps transformation. The first thing is sort of quite obvious. You need to know what you want to achieve. It is very important that you have the backup from the top management, from the C-level. They need to see the sense of urgency. You need to have clear goals, what you want to achieve, and you also need to identify what outcomes, not outputs, you want to achieve. And then you need to measure it and also apply that holistic view that we just saw. Second, your context is different, and this is very important to understand. Use the frameworks that are out there as a toolbox. Take out of that toolbox what fits your need and what solves your problem. Don't apply frameworks or things by the book, and especially use your brain when it comes to DevOps transformations. Steve Ballmer once said, developers, developers, developers. I always say it's leadership, 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 what you need when it comes to agile or DevOps transformation. Leaders need to lead by example. They need to go first. They need to have a clear plan. They need to have an agile mindset. If you don't have that, then it will not work. Then one thing which is very important is building the right thing. Here it is important to identify what the right thing is which we want to build. And here lean portfolio management comes into play, where you are going to prioritize the big initiatives so that you don't overload your development team. And here helps massively when you are going to focus again on outcomes of your big initiatives so that you build the right thing. When you are going to build the right thing, then you want to build the right thing right. And here building quality comes into play, and building up a platform with standards helps here massively. And then one thing which is very important, do software engineering. Don't hire programmers, hire software engineers, because you need to do engineering. And then the last point is you are never done. Such a DevOps transformation is not a project. It is something which needs continuous improvement and which will go forever on. You can clearly see that we are entering the age of industrialization of software development. Companies want to build up these digital factories where the platform engineering is the foundation of your digital factory, which builds the platform, which is then used by your product teams, which then can do DevOps. And this is the way how you can do a DevOps transformation in your company.